What's up, YouTube? It's TJ, your life coach. Today, I'm going to start a series called Reviewing Ram Dass. So, who's Ram Dass? Ram Dass was a very big figure back in the 60s and so on. He was very big into the renaissance of psychedelics. He was a Harvard professor who got kicked out eventually because of his passion for using psychedelics to help people open their minds more and to learn more. And he eventually went on to India. He learned a lot of stuff on meditation and religion, different things. And he came back to America to lecture. He was a very funny and a very outspoken and open lecturer, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, he's a big spiritual leader, and he was formerly known as Richard Alpert when he was a professor at Harvard, but later he was known as Ram Dass, which also means servant to God. So why does anything that Ram Dass says apply to our lives? Well, that's where the series is going to come in. I want to use this series to share different quotes that he uses in a podcast of his lectures or recording his lectures within a podcast. I'm going to record certain quotes he says. We're going to go ahead and look at those quotes and talk about them. And I want to explain different things in them that can help us and be applied to our lives to help us be more successful. And whether or not we're spiritual, we can still use these things to help us and to benefit our lives. So now this quote I'm about to go ahead and share the recording of, it's one of my favorites. I love it. It will definitely take your mind for a little spin, but we're going to talk about it afterward.
The relationship to a personal God is a way that is easy for a human incarnate to start from. Because you know relationship and you know that kind of emotional heart quality of relationship. So to anthropomorphize the thing, to project a being and then relate to it, it's like having an imaginary playmate. And you make the imaginary playmate, you really invest the imaginary playmate. The bizarre thing that happens at the end is, as I've said before, you find out that the imaginary playmate was real and you were imaginary. But because you finally merge into God, and then you as a separate entity are kind of irrelevant.
All right, so that was a beautiful quote there. Let's go ahead and talk about the first part first. So for me personally, in my life, at least in the earlier part of my life so far, but for most of my life so far, I definitely projected God or the whole universe as a certain single being that I trusted and followed. And of course, for me, this is very helpful, especially when I was a young Mormon missionary with the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. And I was able to be directed by this wonderful, beautiful being to help people and do different things. And of course, me as a mortal human being am still directed by that same exact being, but it is now perceived differently for me. It's no longer a white bearded man up in the clouds. For me, it's a little different. And for you, if you still believe in that is perfectly okay, because beliefs help us to get from here to there. It was easy for me to project the universe into a single being to be able to relate to and to love and to be with. And so that was very helpful earlier in my spiritual path. And of course, seeing the universe as a single being who created the entire universe around it is very helpful for most of us, because that is how the human mind is able to relate to things and to connect. And so it's very, very beneficial for us to at least start out that on the spiritual path that we are all on. After the next part of the quote, our brain kind of loses track, because in order to get and to really understand the wisdom of the rest of the quote, we're no longer using so much of our minds as we are using our intuitive feeling or Holy Spirit or whatever name you've chosen for it. That's what we're going to use to be able to understand the rest of this quote here. Our mind isn't really able to follow the fact that we could be imaginary, because of course our mind is what we can call the ego. It's a collection of thoughts. And thoughts are helpful, useful, but they're not absolute truth. And so we, as collective consciousness, we are absolute truth, but our thoughts are only relatively true for certain situations, because of course they're helpful. Sometimes they're not helpful, but they're only relatively true. We as beings are all, at the core of it, we are consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is awareness. It's the ability to be aware, to be here in the moment, to be able to see thoughts that come. And for those of us who meditate, it's very easy, or at least once we're a little more seasoned, we practice, it's easy for us to see how thoughts in our minds work. They're very catchy. They like to throw thoughts in there. It's kind of like a sky with clouds. Like clouds are going by, and our attention is getting caught in all these clouds in the sky. And so these are how our thoughts work. Now, for those of you who are freaking out right now, telling me that I'm wrong and that you are real, of course you are. You're here. There's a body there. There's a brain there. There's a soul there. There's thoughts happening. But what the point that I'm trying to come across with is the fact that you're not who you think you are. Now, this is something Ram Dass says all the time too, is who you think you are is not real, because of course we know that our thoughts, they come and go. There's some thoughts we hold on to for longer. We attach ourselves to them and say, I am this thought for sure. And it helps our brain to relate to the world and to everything else. What happens when we have these labels, it stops us from really, truly being in the moment and really here with the rest of life. Words and labels are more like signs that point to certain things, but they aren't the actual thing. If I say the wall behind me is blue, the word blue isn't the actual wall. It's not even the actual color. The color is beyond words. It's beyond any label we can put to it because it is something else. Words are just pointers to that object or the thing or whatever it is. So at the core of it, we are what is watching our thoughts go by. We are what is watching everything happen in our lives, which is pure awareness or consciousness. That is what we are at the core. And so our thoughts are helpful along the way, but they are not who we really are. We are this pure awareness, this eternal, wonderful, loving being. And since we're all at the core, that means we're all at one level. We are the same exact being here, learning, loving, helping itself out through each of us together. So our projection, or what we've created in our minds to be God, helps us along the spiritual path, but only to a certain extent. We get to it to a certain extent, and we must drop all the thoughts that we have about the universe and about God and how it all works and realize that we are it. We are it working right now. We are God's hands, feet, everything. We are all part of it. We are all interconnected. We are all one. Ram Dass is trying to show us this. Who you think you are doesn't actually exist, but who we really are has always existed and will always exist because we're all eternal. We're all here together, and it is incredibly beautiful. I hope you guys have liked this episode. I hope it is helpful. I'm going to keep working on my abilities to be able to teach people and to be able to spread good messages and the love that the peace of the universe and Ram Dass has for each one of us. I love you guys. Have a great day. We'll see you.